Hi everyone. Okay, it's Nancy again from Jack and Link. I am a homeschool mom of two boys. I have been using CKLA for going on 5 years now. I also own a small handmade business with my husband, and we handmake wooden and educational items. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's jump into CKLA. I have quite a bit to catch you guys up on. Number one, if you watched my previous video where I went over CKLA lesson 2A, I totally could have done lesson 2A and 2B all together because it wasn't that intense to separate section 2B on its own. So if you're watching this and you haven't dived into it yet, just know lesson 2A and 2B I feel can totally go together. So what was in lesson 2B? So let's go over that. Lesson 2B was basically using a graphic organizer that they provide for you. And what they are starting to do is plug in all this information on early Indian civilizations that we've covered so far. So we've covered farming, cities, writing, and we've covered religion. And I'm going to show you here in a second on how I did it. But basically, I replicated this chart and put it up on chart paper, up on the board, and I cut out the image cards, and they tell you what to say. So they tell you all the things to do, what images to cut out. It was kind of self-explanatory. I just did exactly what they told me to do. I didn't modify this activity at all. I just did it just like that. And it was done in like 5 minutes. I honestly could have just merged it with lesson 2A. The only other thing is this image review. They told you what images to look through from the flip book, and you just had the students orally summarize it. So I just had my boys just kind of like use the pictures as kind of like a visual aid and then summarize what we've learned so far. Done. Like this whole section 2B took us like 5 minutes. So lesson 2B essentially consisted of making a chart like this. So you have a black line master that they provide for you, and the kids can follow along with you. However, you would have to make these pictures super small for it to fit into their grid. So what they suggest is just having them handwrite the words that they want them to handwrite into their black line master. And I replicated the chart on the wall, which is what they suggested doing in the first place. And we went ahead and added all those images up there that they have covered so far. So we've covered farming, cities, writing. Haven't done leaders yet, but we've done religion. I think this one's gonna come in one of the future lessons. So I can see where this is going. Pretty soon, we're also gonna be filling out early Chinese civilization, and we're gonna be comparing and contrasting the two. So what I ended up doing is I went ahead and jumped into 3A. So I did 3A and 3B. So I ended up doing 2B, 3A, and 3B, and it probably took us a little under an hour. So it's totally doable. And the only reason it even took us that long is because we went through these sideways conversations. So let's take a look at lesson 3. So lesson 3, you're basically just doing a little bit of a review right over here. Key components of a civilization. Let's look up Asia and India on the map. Why was the Indus River important? And then you have vocabulary. And again, with vocabulary, if you guys have vocabulary notebooks or you have a history notebook, you can totally have them write down the vocabulary word and the definition in their notebook. But we kind of just orally do it. There's so many opportunities throughout CKLA for reinforcement of those vocabulary words that I kind of just we just discuss it. And then they want you to update your map. So you know how you were supposed to have been working on your map? We did that on the very first lesson with the scroll paper. Hold on, let me go get it. So this is our map. Do you guys remember I shared with you guys how this annoying roll-up paper that you get that has like the bulk sheet is perfect for doing these kind of maps because it kind of feels like scrolls. And then when you're done, it just rolls back up and you can just store it standing up somewhere, you know? So anyway, they want you to update and label the maps on the new areas that you have learned about so far. So the Ganges River being the most important one. Then you have a review. Let's review everything that we've learned up to this point. And I kind of really love these purpose for listening because it kind of guides them and gives them something to listen for. So this one says, tell students to listen carefully to find out if there are any holy texts and or important figures in Hinduism. So this whole entire chapter is about Hinduism and it being the most widely practiced religion in India. So this is all scripted. You don't have to think about anything or do anything. You basically show this image, read it. Show the image, read it. And then you have these footnotes to kind of guide your conversation and go deeper into some areas. It reviews the vocabulary. As the vocabulary words come up, you'll see a footnote, and the definition again will be off to the left. So you don't have to keep scrolling back into wherever the definition page was, the vocabulary page. You don't have to keep scrolling back to this because they will repeat it over here. Okay, so we went over Hinduism. And then you have, so far at the end of every single lesson, there's been some word work activity. And I have actually really been loving the word work activity. But hold on, I'm going too quick. Okay, comprehension questions. So I highlight my questions because my eyes get so tired. I just need to be able to visually see where the questions are sometimes. So highlighting the questions for me has been really helpful. I don't know, maybe I'm getting old, but I will highlight the questions, the answers there, highlight the question, the answers there. And then you have some pictures that you can have them turn to as you're asking the question to kind of aid them in their response. Okay, now we're back to word work. I've really been liking it. So the word to focus on for this lesson was represents. And that represents means it stands for or symbolizes something. So we talked about examples like the Statue of Liberty stands for freedom, opportunity, like that kind of stuff. So what I did is I ended up I ended up taking out this activity and I used their notebooks. And this is what it looked like for us. So I had them illustrate something that symbolizes something to them. And he picked the Statue of Liberty and he illustrated it out. And he wrote me one sentence using the word represents. So the Statue of Liberty represents freedom, defiance, and opportunity. And opportunity. So that was kind of a good way to break up the lesson because they got to draw. We brainstormed different symbols that we know of that we've learned throughout history that represent something, and then we picked one of those and they each picked something different and they illustrated it. So then we just jumped into 3B. So now we have 3B, and this is another comparison chart. So this one is a little bit different from the other one that I showed you guys, and they give you the black line masters, and it's just organized so well because you'll see 3B1. You're in 3B, like you know exactly where to find it and what this is supposed to be for. So this is a different comparing and contrasting chart, even though you're not doing this part quite yet because you're going to be filling it out in other lessons. So we just went through the characteristics of Hinduism. And then I'm sure later on in these lessons, we're going to be doing comparing and contrasting. So it's just laying the footwork for it. So that was essentially all of what 3B was. It was just that. And then I'll show you where I put it up on the chalkboard here in a second. The last thing to do was this multiple word choice, which is with the word club. So we talked about a pack of cards, so if you have aces, spades, all that stuff, but that club can also mean like a place that you go and party, and it can also mean like a stick. And that was done. So all of that didn't take us more than an hour. So I just did 2B, 3A, and 3B. And then that was it for the week. But there is one last thing I want to show you that I started to incorporate with the kids for bedtime stories, and we are loving it. This is what that looked like. So I basically just replicated the chart on the board, and I did exactly what they told me to say. They tell me exactly what to write down in each category. We would discuss it as I wrote it down, And then that's basically it. You do have to keep this though, because you're going to have to do the same on the Buddhism one. So you're going to have to keep this one and you're going to have to keep this one. Don't forget that CKLA has a huge book list that has really good suggestions in there. We've gotten some from the library and we've been reading them as bedtime stories or throughout the week whenever I have time. But the Arabian Nights I thought was like, and I don't think this is one of the ones suggested in CKLA. It just so happened that I was walking through the library when I went to go pick up the reserved books and I saw it and I'm like, wait a second, a lot of the stories in Arabian Nights take place, like originate from India. I think it's Persia, India, And there's like one other country. I'm like, okay, it all ties in together. So we've been reading Arabian Nights, and it has been so good. So this one is a really nice copy. I think the illustrations could have been a little bit better, but man, the stories are really good. So we've just been reading it as bedtime stories. So there's another idea for those of you guys following along and who are thinking about doing this CKLA Ancient Asian Civilizations unit. Okay, I hope you guys have a really great upcoming week. If you enjoy these kind of videos, please don't forget. Let me know in the comments because that is encouraging to me. And then subscribe so you guys know when I come out with other additional videos.